So last night I saw Solo: A Star Wars Story, and I enjoyed it. I wanted to put this video out, just a quick review, because my main, however long video it is, it's taking a lot of time to edit, won't be up by when I wanted it to be, which was today. But yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I think it's a very fun ride. It's just a Han Solo origin that's fast. And yeah, let's talk about Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo. He does a great job as the character. I think out of all the choices I heard for who they wanted, he was the best one, just because I didn't really have a preconceived idea of what he was, or he didn't play like a big character where I would just be like, oh, if it was Miles Teller, I would be like, oh, that's Mr. Fantastic, or just like, oh, that's Miles Teller. But there were parts where I was like, who is this guy? And then it took my brain a minute to be like, oh yeah, it's Han Solo. I'm supposed to be looking at Han Solo right now. But it works by the end of the movie, where I think on a second viewing, I'm going to be in it the entire time, where I'm like, yes, this is a Han Solo movie. I'm watching Han Solo do Han Solo things. But yeah, he does a great job. He doesn't do an impression of Harrison Ford, which I know a lot of people were hoping for some reason. But he does his own thing, and he does a great job. Then you have a fantastic Lando performance by Donald Glover. And he does the best thing you could do, which is he puts his own spin on the character. Like, he has his own moments where you're like, oh, okay, this is actually Lando-like. But then there are parts where he kind of like, he channels Billy D. Williams, and he says some lines exactly the way you would think Billy D. would give them. And it's pretty fun, and I don't know, I knew that casting was perfect from the moment it was announced. And then you have some of the characters I didn't really care for as much. Oh, and then you have Chewbacca, of course, but he's not given as prominent of a role as I would have liked, which is kind of sad, because it's Chewbacca, who you'd think would be right with Han Solo throughout the entire film. But then you have like L337, who's pretty cool. Just a droid character. It's kind of similar to K2SO from Rogue One, but you know, it's its own thing. It's like just a droid rights character, and that's a fun idea. I wish they fleshed it out a bit more. Maybe we'll see with the Lando movie that they might be making. Then you have Keira, who's Han Solo's childhood friend, and she does an alright job. The problem with a lot of these characters in the casting is I keep wanting to call them whatever their actors played them previously, or whatever their actor's name is. Like, I never grew attached to calling Emilia Clarke Keira. Whenever I would see her on screen, my brain would just go to, oh yeah, it's Daenerys Targaryen. Or whenever I would see Thandie Newton, I never even learned what her character's name was. Yeah, so that seemed to be the main problem with all of the casting and the characters, which isn't necessarily a problem with the movie, that's just a problem with how my brain works, I guess. But everybody else does a fine job, except for Woody Harrelson has this really weird line read where they're on a train and he's yelling back to the ship. And it's so flat when they're in such a critical moment of danger that I'm just like, is this a character decision? And then it just kind of happens. I don't know how to explain it. You just kind of have to watch the movie and look for it. But besides that, yeah, all the characters are good. I don't want to say this in a negative way, but the way all of the action and the plot is set up is similar to X-Men Origins Wolverine, whereas that's a terrible movie. But, you know, it's kind of, the plot is video game-like, where it's just like point A to point B to point C. Like, go to this objective. Okay, you got that objective. Oh, you have to fight me to get to this next objective. You know, it's kind of like that, where nobody really sits down and talks about what they're doing. It's, everybody is like, oh, well, you gotta fight this person to get here. It's not that exactly, but it's like, this is gonna be light spoilers, but there's a part in the movie where it's like, oh, you have to get that thing, you have to make it through this to get to there. And it's like, oh, okay, it's kind of like a video game where it's like, oh, here's your objective, go complete it, and then you come back and get the reward. Which, it's not a bad thing. It's it's kind of the tone of the movie is trying to go for, where it's just like, okay, fun, fast-paced action. This is how we're gonna do it. We're not gonna sit around and talk to each other. But the parts where they actually do stop and talk, like there's a part where Lando and Han are playing sabacc, which is great, because these characters are talking to each other and they're bouncing off. They don't always have to be fighting and making quips with each other. But, when they're doing that, it's pretty good too. It's just, it gets a little old, a little fast. I'm gonna go deeper into spoilers right now, so you might want to stop watching this. I think you should watch the movie, because it is fun and it's worth your money. But, yeah, deep spoilers right now. There are fun couple Legends Easter eggs that I picked up on. Or not even Legends, just Expanded Universe. Like, there's a part where Woody Harrelson's character mentions that... Lando mentions that Beckett killed Aurora Singh, who's from Phantom Menace and has a bigger role in the prequels. And then there's, I remember seeing promo images for this, but Tag and Bink were supposed to be in the movie, and I never noticed their presence. But the one of the big ones for me is when Emilia Clarke takes on one guy by herself, and Woody Harrelson mentions, like, oh, where did you learn to do that? And she says, oh, I learned some Terrace Cassie from whoever, I think it was Paul Bettany's character, and I sat there with the biggest smile on my face, because I could not believe that they were bringing Terrace Cassie into official Star Wars canon. And if you don't know, there's a PlayStation title that I grew up loving, but it's a horrible game now. It's called Masters of Terrace Cassie, and it's just a PlayStation fighting game. That was an amazing Easter egg for somebody like me, and clearly it was put in there so somebody in their 20s would realize, like, oh my god, I grew up playing that game. So yeah, that was a fun Easter egg. There were a lot more I didn't notice, but the big one was Darth Maul in the movie, which I wasn't able to tell, but it was Ray Park did play Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace, but voiced by Sam Witwer, who did the voice in Clone Wars and Rebels. And seeing him in live action, I honestly did not see that coming. And that was a pretty amazing reveal. I think a lot of people in the audience, I was seeing it, there were mostly adults in the audience, but I heard a kid say Darth Maul is alive, which I think is going to be the main reaction from a lot of people who didn't watch Clone Wars or Rebels. Because, yeah, as far as everybody else knew, Darth Maul was dead at the bottom of Naboo. But yeah, seeing him, he's only on screen for 5 minutes, and it didn't... I thought going in, like, oh, this is going to be a lightsaber-free movie. But, yeah, Darth Maul ignites a lightsaber in it, so that kind of killed that idea. But seeing him, it really raised a couple questions for me, because I'm thinking, oh, is this going to be a Han Solo plotline, or is this just setting something up for a Darth Maul movie later down the line, or like a Keira movie where we see the two of them? It's really weird, because we know Darth Maul's fate, and anybody can look it up if they watched Rebels. So I'm just interested to see where that goes. But in terms of wanting a sequel to Solo, I have no interest in watching another Han Solo movie at the moment. Maybe in a couple years. I would much rather see something that's in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens involving Han Solo, which, if Disney plans on making a movie a year, we might see in a couple years with Alden Ehrenreich and maybe somebody playing Princess Leia. But at the moment, I have no interest in seeing another one of these movies. It was fun, and I think it was Disney testing out the water, seeing like, okay, what kind of movies can we make for Star Wars? And then somebody said, fun space western, but with Han Solo as the main character. Which, my biggest criticism is the Han Solo moments. Like, there's a part early on where somebody gives Han Solo his name. It's an Imperial recruiter who's like, oh, what's your first name? And then he says Han, and your last name. Oh, I don't have a last name. Okay, well, you fly solo then. And I thought that made me cringe a little bit. But there weren't too many of those moments. Only that, and there's a part where he's talking to Chewbacca, and he's like, oh, we gotta give you a nickname. And then I thought they were gonna sit around and be like, oh, what about Baki or something like that? And then they finally land on Chewie. But they didn't do that. They're just straight off to calling him Chewie immediately after he says, "We need a nickname for you." Yeah, so those are my main thoughts on the movie. I like it, but it does have a lot of issues. I think I would have rather seen a different character in this movie. Like, if it was Dash Rendar Star Wars story, I think I would have enjoyed that a bit more, just because you don't have to shoehorn in the Han Solo origin into just this space adventure, which is what the movie wanted to be, was primarily a space adventure. And I think this movie is going to do a great job getting people pumped for Episode 9, because now we don't have a year in between Episode 9, we have a year and a half, which is the first time since Force Awakens where we've had that long of a gap between something Star Wars related. But, you know, it's a pretty good movie. I think it's enjoyable. I don't really know how to end a review, I guess, because I've never done this before. But yeah, see Solo. You just listen to my spoilers, so you probably already saw it. But let me know what you think about the movie. I'm really curious to hear what people think, because for me, liking The Last Jedi as much as I did, and knowing a huge group of people hated it, I'm really curious to see what the demographic of people who love this movie is compared to Last Jedi. So let me know in the comments if you liked The Last Jedi and your thoughts on this movie, and maybe where you could see this movie going in the future, but keep spoilers limited for the time being. Alright, thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.